Okay, I am Dr. Michael James, and I'm here with.
Charles P. Fire, the
All
man
right,
himself.
and we are the filmmakers here of the miniseries entitled Screwtape Interviews with a Demon. Now, as we are making this commentary about the movie that we made, we don't. By as of now, we don't have a tremendous following. There's not a
No.
tremendous audience here at all. But the people who are watching it are very much into it. We've developed a cult following, so to speak, and we
Mhm.
thought this would be very interesting for them to watch why we made this movie, how we made this movie, and the themes, the spiritual and religious and
Mhm.
theological themes we think that are so significant.
Mhm.
That moved us to make it. So we're going to talk about this as we watch all 4 episodes, all which make the complete miniseries. Before
Yeah.
we get to it, I want to talk about this beginning scene here. This beginning scene was actually recut. We had to redo. We had a very tough time with episode 1 when
Mhm.
we shot it and we wrote it. It came out to be about 23 minutes long,
Yeah.
and it was just way too long, and also
Mhm.
it was unclear. So we
Right.
had to go back and really cut a lot
Yeah.
out of it and really
Well,
communicate to people
yeah.
clearly who are these characters. Go ahead, Charles.
Right. No, that part just before that part was great. We never had to change anything about that, obviously.
Yeah,
But
of
I
course. Yeah.
think
The wolf cutaways. The wolf cutaways.
the
We
wolf
really had to
cutaways.
rework wolf and
It,
those scenes.
it was hard to understand what his position was. Like we knew what it was because he's a podcast producer, doing the audio and the sound, and it occurred to us that if you're not familiar with how these things work, you would have no idea who this guy was.
Yeah.
It was a great note for us because when you're transitioning from something you've written down and you've lived with like we did, it's
Yes.
you kind of make a lot of assumptions
Hmm.
going forward that you have to show, and sometimes you don't even realize that you're not showing uh,
Absolutely.
what you've written down. So
When you're so familiar with the product, you're so familiar with the
mhm,
story. We don't,
yeah,
that's why we have a test audience to see are they
yeah,
understanding what we want to communicate. Now, if you
right,
go back even further, if you look at that theme song in the beginning, ding, 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 that's
hmm,
actually Charles the theme song, one of the music from The Prisoner with Patrick McGowan, which was
ah,
a social science show in the 1960s. It was very
yeah,
avant-garde, it's very mysterious.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and what that TV show does, it asks you to
right,
believe in this concept, this
yeah,
make-believe concept that he's a spy, and but
hmm,
as soon as the audience agrees to buy into the concept with no special effects, nothing crazy, then you
well,
really begin to understand
yeah,
the sort of great stories and the intrigue that they bring
right,
about. So that was influential.
right,
Actually, if you see my
yeah,
coffee cup in the
mm.
background is actually a big picture of The Prisoner with Patrick
Oh, is that right?
McGowan that my sister gave me.
Okay,
Yes. So
ah,
it's very interesting, the kind of parallels to that.
okay, yeah,
And also, if you look at the ending
yeah,
with well, we'll get to that later when we get to the fourth
hmm,
episode. But yeah, so we had to
yeah,
rework that a lot. Another note that came back is, it's really a shame because I really loved a lot of what we wrote for episode
hmm,
1. When you get
yeah,
really attached to it, some great lines by Screwtape, some great character development going on here.
hmm,
Wolf did a wonderful job performing, but we had to say, what is this movie about? It's really about Michael James primarily and
hmm,
Screwtape, and
hmm,
the B plot is Father Kevin McCory. So Wolf
hmm,
really, we had to really cut him down and for him to be kind of
hmm.
pushed to the background so we could
Which
really
I
tell
think
this
that
story
worked.
in only 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah, got to
yeah, but
stay focused.
it worked because to keep it with the spiritual themes within the Screwtape Letters itself is
Hmm.
these demons are changing their tact based on the people that they're dealing with.
Hmm.
And I think Wolf, especially as a kind of a peripheral character who gets, for lack of a better, shot down relative, and as you go through, you kind of see his progression,
Hmm.
and it's on the periphery as almost like a consequence
Hmm.
of Michael James's arrogance, thinking that he can
Absolutely.
take on this superior being
Hmm.
without all that collateral damage.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I
So
think it worked
this,
out pretty well. Yeah.
yeah. So this takes us to who we are, right? Who
Mhm.
we are, because I think a lot of we have a lot of new subscribers who are just interested in this and not so much familiar with the other content on the
Mm,
on the channel. So
mhm.
who we are and why we're doing this. Me
Mhm.
and Charles, we went to film school together
Okay.
25 years ago. We went to film
Mhm.
school together, and
Uh-huh.
where we learned a lot
Free
of this
YouTube.
stuff. Absolutely. And what happened was, for whatever reason, we got back together with an old friend of ours, and his name
Mhm.
is Kevin McCory. He was also a brilliant filmmaker that
Mhm.
we knew. Great guy, absolutely great guy. First time I saw him in decades. And he was a filmmaker, and he was doing it for a while, and then he
Mhm.
met this wonderful Catholic girl, beautiful Catholic girl, great Catholic
Mhm.
family, and
Yep.
she married him, and then he kind of settled down.
Mhm.
He's a little rough around the edges. Don't you think that would be fair, Charles? He's rough. He was rough around
He's
the edges
he
as a
still
youth.
is. He's still a little rough around the
I was
edges.
going to
Yeah.
say, but
Yeah.
no, I think getting married to this one, that's what Irish girls do. They bat their eyes, and
That's right.
then they marry you, and then next thing you know, he's sitting in church. He's sitting in
He's
church, and he gave up the wild life, and that's
yeah.
Kevin McCory. So
Yeah.
we got together with him. We had and he said, let's pull out the old films. We're watching the old
Mhm.
films we made 25 years ago.
Mhm.
And he said a very nice compliment, Charles, a very nice
Mm.
compliment. And
I remember.
he said, Mike, with all the problems and the silliness of these movies 25 years ago and all the bad quality, when it came to raw storytelling, you really had to give something like that. It was very.
Mm.
I'm not used to people saying nice things to me.
No,
I'm really
no,
not, Charles,
it
not
went
at all.
right to your head, and here we are.
So I just said, wait a minute. What if, as a man in his mid 40s,
Mhm.
what if I did another film, a religious film, and I learned from all the mistakes I made in my 20s? What would that look
Mhm.
like? So I said,
Here it
Charles, what do
is.
you think?
Yeah.
And instead of Charles saying, Mike, this is a midlife crisis, don't do it, he said, let's go. Let's
That's
do
right.
it. Let's make
Let's
another film.
let's buy this Corvette together and make our dad's garage band movie equivalent. Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. It
Absolutely.
was a lot of fun. Yeah.
And that's why we named the character Father Kevin McCory
Yep.
after really the third member of
Mhm.
our film group
Mhm.
25 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that whole us coming together and just rethinking our
Hmm.
attitude towards art in general, and not even just
Yeah.
films. That it was something that when we were kids, we were imagining that we wanted to do this for a living. Um, and I think when we went on to do other things, we kind of lost that notion that we should even be doing it. And
Hmm.
this kind of a return to just doing it for the sake of itself, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
when you're a young filmmaker, you
Mhm.
don't have the you don't know, you have nothing in your head,
Mhm.
you don't have the substance to really
No,
express. And
no,
we have some very mature themes that
right.
we are able to express here. And we're very happy with how this turned out, and we're very
Yeah,
happy with the quality of
yeah,
this and what it does.
yeah.
But let's move on. So the script writing process, the script writing process. So we started
Mm.
off with the concept, kind of like The Prisoner, to go back to that. It was a
You
home
made
run
me watch it.
concept.
I remember.
Yeah,
I've seen The Prisoner. Yeah, I was under
so
orders to.
it was just a home run concept.
Uh,
Screwtape doing a podcast, and that's what we started out with. And
yeah.
so, how does this work? What does this do? So we got a podcast. How does this happen? And then we
Hmm.
started kicking around scripts and developing things. We had this concept, but what's the story? And we said, well, like the Larry Sanders show, it's the podcast, the C.S. Lewis material, and then we're going to have the
Hmm.
story behind it. And then
Mm.
we said, well, let's have Wolf, right? And Wolf is impacted, right? They're going to be impacted by this demonic
Hmm.
encounter, and Wolf would go back to drinking. And then we said, then we'll have the father Kevin McCory, and his priesthood's going to be attacked, and he's going to have to
Hmm.
work through that. And
Hmm.
everything was falling. And then but what's going on with Michael James? What's he doing? How does this happen? How is this going to impact him? And how do we end this thing? How do we end this? What's
Hmm.
the story we want to tell here?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then it was you, Charles, that came up with the ending.
Well,
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
and
Go
we
ahead.
had no intention of commenting on abortion. We had no intention of commenting in that direction, but it came to Charles, and everything just fit. It's like, oh, now everything's started to begin to make sense, and
Yeah.
everything, the whole story became the focus.
Mhm.
Do you remember that, Charles?
Yeah, yeah, and I remember, we had initially something very dramatic. We had thought a car accident or a death or something that
Yeah, we were grasping because we had this
yeah,
concept, we had a lot of story
yeah,
elements, but it wasn't
right,
coming together with
right,
what's the ending and what's going to say, and just
mhm,
came to you, and everything.
yeah.
It was like you
Well,
think
because
about
it's
it,
that's such a personal thing.
it's
Is
such a personal thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's something that is not as for most people anyway. It's not a public event. So, a car
Right.
accident or a drowning or something
Yes.
awful,
Right.
that's something you share with a lot of people, even if it
Yes.
happens to you. But
Yes.
with something like abortion, that's something you just share with one other person.
Yes.
And I think that's, those kinds of sins and those kinds of mistakes that we make in our life, we carry with us. And
Absolutely.
there, if your mind's going to get turned in either way, like that's the stuff that really is that's under attack.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
secrets are the things that I think
Yes.
are what bring you down
Right. And
eventually.
and I've never been a part. Of course, this is a story. It's a
Mm,
character, Michael James. I've never been a
right.
part of an abortion, but I've lived
Mhm.
long enough to know um,
Yeah.
many people who have been part
Sure.
of these things, and how these things impact,
Yeah.
and just the different dimensions about. Okay, we have this abortion thing. What does that say? How did that leave
Mm,
Michael James open to this demonic attack? How is that
mhm,
impacting him? And then we really began to have this character,
mm,
Michael James, and then he began to become he had to become more and more um, frazzled, off
mhm,
balance.
mhm.
His priorities are out of whack, and
Yeah.
we really had to show the dominance of Screwtape,
Mhm,
how the evil one will continue, like as we see that this progression of Michael James unwinding
mm,
and becoming more and more tormented and losing touch and
mhm,
really becoming wimpier and wimpier, demasculating him. So the
mhm,
character had to continue to be more and more of a weak
mhm,
character to really show what we were trying to show here, which is the demonic influence, how that takes away
mhm.
your humanity, demasculates you.
Yeah. And I,
And
I
then I would
wonder,
and then I would joke around. I said, "This is
yeah.
great. I'm here. I am middle aged. I'm starring in
Uh-huh,
my own movie, and I'm a complete wuss. How did this happen?
yeah.
I don't know."
Uh,
But the story again, storytelling, all these pieces had to fit. It had to
yeah.
fit, and I think that's what I'm very proud of. We have all these
Yeah.
different pieces that fit together.
Yeah. Well, and I think what was important also was to show the engagement in the first place uh, was a choice,
Yeah,
and you'll see it right here at this part where
my
he
favorite scene. One of
chooses.
my favorite scenes.
Yeah, yeah. It's
It really tells the audience. And again, episode
right.
one, we had to work on so much to make it really
Mhm.
clear. Like, who are these people? And
Yeah.
then you see, okay, Michael James, he is choosing to do
Hmm.
something that he should not be
Yeah.
doing. And we make that
Yeah.
very clear here.
Right. And there's so much the hubris, the arrogance, the the idea that you can do it alone, and
Hmm.
hopefully we communicate that well, because even though we only have these three characters, you see how helpless they are by
Hmm.
themselves
Right.
against something that's smarter, that is knows you better than you know yourself, and is really aiming towards your destruction and uh, making it seem attractive.
And that is one
And
of our
yeah,
themes here. That's one of our
mhm,
themes is that,
yeah,
the demonic is not to play with. You know,
right,
you do not win the battle. Jesus
no,
wins the battle for you. You are no match for these superior beings. And, we see a lot of times in religious, even art and literature, the idea
hmm,
that these demons are these kind of animals and they're
hmm,
scared of you. And it's like, no, no. And this is what
yeah,
C.S. Lewis's theology, a lot of that is forgotten today,
yeah,
and pushed
yeah,
aside. Like people have mentioned nefarious. Is this like nefarious? And you know, my criticism of nefarious was everything the demon said
hmm,
was pleasing to Christians. Like, yeah, this confirms my faith. This,
right,
but that's not the character Screwtape by C.S. Lewis,
no,
and that's not demonic entities.
mm-mm,
They do not. Everything out of their mouth doesn't confirm your faith and make you feel like a good Christian. It's
Hmm.
half truths. It's twisted. It's
Hmm.
oppressive. It's
Yeah.
manipulative. It
Hmm.
doesn't say, I hate you. It
Yeah.
says, I love you. I want
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
You don't deserve forgiveness. It says, I
Right.
love you. You don't deserve forgiveness. And we
Right.
feel that's a very profound and powerful message for
Yeah.
Christians
Yeah.
today.
But misery loves company.
Hmm.
And I think that that's what a lot of this, what we were talking about. I mean, and, you and I obviously have been talking about this a lot in making this, but uh, there's so much that Screwtape makes attractive,
Hmm.
even if it's just the some of the ideas of like enjoying your own brokenness and your own individuality is something to hold on to,
Hmm.
and something that is
Rejecting surrender.
uniquely
Hmm.
yours, right?
Hmm.
And that's attractive to a lot of
Exactly.
people. I think it's been
Exactly.
attractive to me in my life. Like
Hmm.
it's this sense of self as
Hmm.
um, well, that the self is primary, right? I'm
Right.
I am what's most important,
Hmm.
and
Darkness is attractive and it's
exactly,
seductive.
exactly,
It's seductive, and people
exactly.
choose hell, and you
Hmm.
don't want to choose hell.
That's right.
And it's the divine mercy.
Yeah.
It's Jesus doing for us what we can't
Right.
do. And if you think that your own self righteousness is going to save
Hmm.
yourself, and
Hmm.
you're going to refuse forgiveness, and you're
Yeah.
going to embrace this darkness, I mean, that's the path where this leads, whether you're religious or not. There's a lot of commentary on for religious people in this
Hmm.
as well. It's also a commentary on religious ministry, right? You see Michael
Sure.
James here. I mean, what is religious ministry? But I need to get a lot of attention for the Lord. I need to make some money
Right.
for the Lord. I need to
Hmm.
become famous and successful for the Lord.
Hmm.
That whole for the
Yeah.
Lord piece is
Yeah.
so easily missed. And anyone who's
Hmm.
been involved in religious circles or even not religious circles who just
Hmm.
follow the news, scandal after scandal, fall after
Sure.
fall, fake
Hmm.
after fake, good people can't handle the ministry and they
Hmm.
completely belly up, and how
Yeah.
it constantly happens, and
Hmm.
all these flash in the pan, people who run chasing the fame, whether it's Catholic or whether it's Protestant, it's the same story. A
Yeah.
little bit of fame, a little bit of money destroys
Hmm.
ministries very quickly.
Well, again, I guess you're focused on yourself, your clicks, your engagement,
Yeah.
and those are the kind of things that I think this what makes this timeless. With
Yeah.
the Screwtape Letters in particular, is this internal dialogue that you know uh, you're really you're doing a lot of rationalizing and convincing when you're going through those stages. I think especially, a lot of people can relate to it in their jobs where they take a little shortcut here or there to get ahead or get better. Um, and, it's that the road to hell is very smooth.
Mhm.
And Screwtape is here making it very smooth.
And I think
Yeah.
that's the resonating part of
Hmm.
this whole thing. It's really this
Yeah.
character Screwtape, such a
Hmm.
familiar voice
Hmm.
to everyone.
Hmm.
And we didn't like. We were big fans of the books, and these plays about Screwtape. They don't do it justice. These jokes,
Hmm.
these things. Screwtape is horrifying.
Hmm.
Screwtape is horrifying for anyone
Hmm.
with any experience in the
Hmm.
spiritual life.
Hmm.
Screwtape is absolutely horrifying, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we're able to really do that, which was really a big, a risk.
Hmm.
How are we going to have a character that the audience takes seriously? Again, that's why the
Mm.
idea of the prison, like if we ask the audience to buy in, and that's why we kept the name Michael James. Let me do before we get. I want to talk about Father Kevin's character, but the last thing about the Michael James character, that's
Mhm.
why we kept the name. Like, why didn't you change his name? It's a character. What are you doing?
Mm.
It was because we're asking the audience to make believe that a demon is here, that the screw tape character is real.
Mm.
And that was something to help, really kind of help the audience say, okay,
Make
Michael
the
James is
transition,
a
yeah.
religious podcast, give it a foot in reality. So to help you embrace this piece, so all of the intrigue, all of the heavy
Mm.
themes can really hit you harder.
Yeah.
Because if it's laughable, or if like,
Mhm.
oh, that's some guy in an outfit, or oh, that's
Mhm.
it's gonna fall flat.
Yeah.
So I think we pulled it off. I think we were
Yeah.
able to really
Yeah.
and the audience will go along with you, and they'll do that as long as once they say yes,
Mhm.
you know, the world you enter into makes sense. They're
Yeah,
going to say yes,
and obviously we're really fortunate to have the cornerstone being one of the greatest works of Christian apology
True. True. We should give a
ever.
little credit to
Right.
C.S. Lewis. Yes, he did
Well,
make a good character.
yeah, yeah, and I think that we were talking about being young and coming back to something that we really enjoyed in our formative years, and truly, we were 18 to 22 years old, and those you really start to form ideas that you carry with you for the rest of your life. And that's what I read the Screwtape Letters, and
Yeah,
was not
it's an important
a
age. It's
particularly
an important
religious
age.
kid, um, and that this book planted a seed that has grown throughout my entire life, and it was just such a great uh, bookend to come back to,
Hmm.
with not only like making the film but also revisiting this book that had such a dramatic impact on my life. um yeah, it's really quite the full circle.
The really interesting
Yeah.
thing about doing this
Hmm.
project, as it's a little bit like it's still, as I think about, I can't believe we even did this. It seems kind of odd and strange that we even did
Yeah.
this, but
Yeah.
one affirming piece is that I know that this had a very personally for you, Charles. You shared with
Hmm.
me that this has been a really good spiritual experience for you, just
Yeah.
doing
Hmm.
this and participating in this. So that makes all the difference, even if
Hmm.
the audience remains small. But I do think that
Yeah.
some people are really appreciating it out there,
Good.
and I think it's a good product, and I think it
Hmm.
will really resonate with people as time goes by. So again, we mentioned that episode one took a lot of recutting, a lot of
Hmm.
working, because we had to introduce these characters, and then we had to hook you in. Right. So
Hmm.
number one, we wanted to hook you in with Screwtape, his
Hmm.
charm, his character, let you
Hmm.
know who he is quickly, let you know where
Hmm.
the characters is quickly. We can't waste
Hmm.
people's time. This
That's
is
right.
the internet. They flip things off. We have to
Yeah.
hook you in. And then that
Hmm.
last scene was originally planned for another episode, but that was the hook. What did
Mm.
Michael James do?
Mm.
And the whole idea was, if we hook these guys in, then the episode two, we bring in, who is this girl talking to Father Kevin? What is going on there?
Mhm.
So those are our hooks. Screw tape.
Yeah.
What did Michael James do? What's
Mhm.
going on with this girl?
Mhm.
And we talked about it and we said we can have these hooks. We can have these hooks, but we have to answer it in a satisfying way. We can string them along for all three episodes, but we got
Mhm.
to satisfy them in
Mhm.
episode four. And that was
Yeah.
it all kind of what pivoted on episode four. We have to pull it off.
That was the plan. Make it, make it work together while still. You're right. I mean, you need something to be interested in, and because, like you said, we have this foundation that we're telling stories around it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that the what I like about the hooks too is, while they're important things, they're more important to the characters
Hmm.
than they are to some grander narrative.
Hmm.
They're very personal struggles
Hmm.
with, Michael James having pretty much, from his point of view, forced his girlfriend to have an abortion, to Father Kevin playing with the idea of leaving the priesthood and being with this woman, um, really, but using this woman for his own uh, comfort. Using her because he's depressed or he's upset or because he's really bored with his job. Um, are all, again, they're not these big dramatic events, but I think they're very relatable things that people do every day.
Right. Absolutely. I
And
did. Let
yeah,
me just piggyback on that. The
yeah,
relatable thing. Not many people are priests on this planet,
that's true.
but the Father
Including
Kevin,
me. I am not a priest.
but the Father Kevin character
Mhm.
speaks to commitment, vows,
Yeah,
boredom, depression,
right,
and becoming too intimate with people you shouldn't. I mean, we all heard about the work husband, the work wife,
right, right.
these ideas that pop in your head. Well, maybe I can leave my spouse. Maybe I can leave my,
Fantasies. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
right. and how the demonic is going to play on that and try to destroy your family and destroy the vows that
Right.
you made, and in particular attack priests from
Hmm.
serving people,
Hmm.
pathetic people like Michael James, because the devil doesn't want priests, and the devil doesn't want priests helping people like Michael James work through intense spiritual
No,
warfare.
that's right. That's right. I think, ultimately, to circle back to what we said before, devil wants us focused on ourselves. And
Hmm.
I think what you're saying, like with Wolf in this
This is a
example,
great scene here. Great scene
yeah,
here with Wolf. It just is. It's quick. It's to the point. It tells Wolf's story.
yep, he doesn't want to feel this way anymore.
All
So
my Father
that's his hook.
Kevin, all
Yeah.
the Father Kevin scenes I love. And right here,
Hmm.
this is the first time you're realizing the dimension of their relationship, that they haven't seen
Hmm.
each other. There's no hanky
Right.
panky going on,
Hmm.
but she's like this friend that he calls
Yep.
when he gets depressed,
Yep.
and it's not good. It's playing with fire, playing with
Yep.
fire.
Yep. And
Father
you
Kevin
see
stories.
all
We're
their
hitting the hook again with Michael
it's all
James's past.
exactly. It's all their version of, and the only thing I can think of right now is alcohol, but you have, with Wolf, actual booze. With
Yeah.
Father Kevin, it's this woman, and with Michael, it's this show, this display of religiosity.
Hmm.
It's what he falls in. This is, really what he cares about, and it's all again focused on themselves.
Yeah.
And
As if he can
I think
save himself with
exactly,
his religious reputation.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's episode three. Episode three, again, we gonna start off with Wolf. I mean, a lot of these, just talk about the technical, these, a lot of these, a lot, this is the quality, some of the
Hmm.
lighting is really good here in these Wolf scenes because I had the time to
Hmm.
do it.
Hmm.
It's hit or miss. I'm very happy with
Yeah.
some of the lighting in this stuff. Some of it is just not as, it's just not possible to do great
Right.
stuff, just time constraints,
Hmm.
budget constraints.
Right.
Okay, so we continue with the Father Kevin story here, and now we
Hmm.
know in episode three that he is actually thinking about leaving the priesthood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, we're re-hitting this relationship he has with Michael James. Now let's talk about this. What I love about the Father
Hmm.
Kevin character, right, is that he's annoyed. You
Hmm.
know, ministers don't
Yeah.
necessarily love every bit of their job.
Hmm.
Do you think it's fun ministering to a bunch of broken, whiny people all day? No,
Right.
it's not fun. It's a cross.
Right.
Priests sacrifice a lot. And a lot of times we don't put ourselves in their shoes. Like, they don't
Hmm.
want to hear about my problems for 2 hours. They
Hmm.
got other, but they do that and they sacrifice for that.
Hmm.
Um, and he's incredibly annoyed at
Yeah.
having to do this and dealing with the same problems from people who don't want to get better, who don't want to accept forgiveness.
Hmm.
The rolling of your eyes, and I really like that dimension between them. They're not great friends. They're not great. They don't click, but it's his duty to help
Hmm.
this man under spiritual
Hmm.
attack.
Hmm. Yeah, and he doesn't want to do it anymore. He wants to
Burned
retreat.
out, burned out.
Yeah.
Don't we all get burned out? Imagine if the priesthood doesn't burn you out, if ministry doesn't burn you out, what does,
Right.
It's a
Right.
burnout
Right.
profession. And we're able
Yep.
to touch on that in a very delicate way, I feel,
Hmm.
in a
Yeah.
very way where we honor the importance of the priesthood, the high
Hmm.
calling of the priesthood, but we
Hmm.
acknowledge the struggle and the
Hmm.
humanness of that calling as well, while respecting the high office.
Right. And
And that
that,
was a tightrope. That was a tightrope to do.
and I think it's one of those that, because it is an internal issue, it's also very difficult to show.
Hmm.
And there are a lot of implications, obviously, with a priest talking to a woman. There's intimacy there, but we were very aware that this doesn't have to be obscene or
No.
even gratuitous,
Yes.
to show that this guy is being tempted.
He's
And
being tempted. He's under
it
attack. He's being
exactly.
tempted.
And
And
I
he's
think,
human. He's lonely. He's human.
it,
He's lonely.
exactly, he's also got the it's not just sex. It's not
No.
this. It's very mature.
It's
He's
very, very good.
lonely.
Very good.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so
it's not, oh, I'm tempted by yeah, it's very mature. It's
exactly,
just,
there's a
and
lot
that's
to it.
another theme, is
Yeah,
this look on what my life could have been. It's a very
right.
middle age theme, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Michael James with the child,
Yeah. Hmm.
what his
Hmm.
life would be with the
Yeah.
25-year-old son.
Right.
Father Kevin, what his life would be, and how the devil Screwtape
Hmm.
is taking advantage of that, saying your life
Hmm.
could have been this, your life could have been that, your life is a
Yeah.
train wreck, everything's
Hmm.
over.
Yeah.
The mistakes that you made are unforgivable.
Yeah.
You've made mistakes. It's the
Yeah.
interesting parallel between two very different
Yeah.
men, Father Kevin
Yeah.
and
And
Michael
I wonder
James.
how Wolf fits into that, because he's living the life that he's sober. Um, he's trying to do the right thing, and this attack drives him into his his usual escape.
Yeah,
Um, so for him, I think he just seems like such an innocent bystander
he is.
to Wolf is.
He's an innocent bystander. He knew it was. He was the only one saying,
Yeah.
and this is something that Wolf, who played Wolf, picked up on.
Hmm.
He knew that he's the only one who knows this is a bad idea. He's the
Yeah.
only one. Father Kevin doesn't really even believe it's going on. I think that's an interesting dimension of that.
Hmm.
But Wolf, back to Wolf. Yeah, he's an innocent bystander. He's caught
Hmm.
up. The demonic force is too much for him. He's
Hmm.
too much weak. Right here, that scene right there in
Yeah, I
episode
love that one.
three.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
subtle. It's
That's one of
subtle.
my
It's
favorite
not over
cuts.
the
Yeah,
top,
yeah.
and we're able to tell Wolf's story in
Mm.
just like what 40 seconds of pictures, right?
Hmm.
40 seconds of pictures and three lines. We're
Hmm.
able to sell, and it's a good, and that story with the alcoholism, it's been told many ways and much
Sure.
better, but
Hmm.
it just fits here. But let's talk
Yeah,
about Father
yeah.
Kevin. If
Less
anything you
is
want to
more.
say about Wolf, and then we'll talk about Father
No, no, no,
Kevin
no. Just that
and
less is more, because we ended up cutting down a lot of him, and made it so much more concise, and I think it told a better story with
let's
that.
talk
Yeah.
about Father Kevin and his beliefs, right?
Okay.
This was something that really developed, So
Mm.
Father Kevin, of course, he doesn't, like 99.9% of the priests. Some fragile person says, "I'm talking to a demon," right?
Right.
Like it's talking to a demon. He's annoyed. He's tired. He's seen this kind of stuff before
Hmm.
throughout his priesthood.
Hmm.
He has this demonic dream.
Mm.
He becomes aware that there is a demonic force involved here with Michael James
Hmm.
in his own life,
Hmm.
and even though it's really with the Father Kevin story, it's too quick of a turnaround for Father Kevin to wake up from the dream and say, "I'm a
Hmm.
priest forever in the line of Melchizedek." It's too quick of a turnaround, and
Hmm.
that's not
Hmm.
what winning a spiritual battle looks like.
Mm.
He has this dream. He understands his demonic force. He still doesn't think, there's a real screw tape talking to
Hmm.
him.
Hmm.
And there's this one line that Father Kevin says, which I think is very, very important. And I think you might agree with me
Hmm.
when he says, "I'm a priest. It's what I'm called to do. And I'm too old to do anything else anyway." Now,
Yeah.
that line might feel awkward, or a lot of people might not even like that,
Hmm.
but it really says something that it's not a 360, it's not a 180 turnaround, you know?
Hmm.
He's
Hmm.
confirmed in his priesthood. He wins the battle. He survives, but he has a secular reason for staying too. He's surviving. He's
Hmm.
surviving. He's not embracing Michael James's story completely, but he's moving in the right directions. He's doing what
Yeah.
he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
He's duty bound to help Michael James. He's duty bound to stay in the priesthood, and he
Hmm.
lives to fight another day and
Yeah.
develop. And that's what I
Yeah.
really love. It would be way too much, and we couldn't show it in this
Absolutely.
story for
Yeah.
Father Kevin to go from Father Kevin to, you know, Bing
Yeah.
Crosby overnight. It's just not going to
Right.
happen.
Right. Right. And I think that because of the story that we're telling, it's important that we don't have those big dramatic shifts. We have much more of
Yes.
a subtle, because the spiritual battle is
Yes.
ongoing.
Yes.
There's not a win and the flag fluttering in the background and wind in your hair.
Mhm.
Like, it is this. It's going to continue.
Right.
Even with that empty chair, like, it's not over.
Right.
And
And that commitment to realism,
mm, mhm.
makes all
Yeah.
this fantasy come alive, have a
Right. And
life of
I
its
could
own.
tell you what Father Kevin was going through. There's something obviously, like, a lot of people can relate to, and I know myself for my real job. When you get to a burned out place, um, you stop listening to people. You
Yeah.
stop. you stop caring about them as individuals and you just kind of see them as burdens.
Yeah.
And when you have that moment, that wake up moment, because there's something really wrong, you need to do something right now. It's not a ripping your shirt open to
Yeah.
show the S. It's, oh, I got to get through this. I
Right.
have to do
Right.
my job now. And I think
Absolutely.
that's what Father Kevin was feeling.
Right. We
I
weather
have to
the
do my job.
storm. Oh,
Yeah.
I want to check this out. Come on in for this scene. This scene is a great scene. I
Mm,
like all of these voices in
yeah.
the back. Are really good. First, I say something like, "I hope you got all my messages." Right again, off
Hmm.
balance. I'm blowing up his
Yeah.
phone. How annoying!
Yeah.
The girl call in such a typical girl way. Just
Uh,
checking in with you. Very cute.
right.
The old lady calling, annoying. He really doesn't
Hmm.
want to hear the
Right.
parishioners right now. And
Right.
then Monsignor, the way Monsignor talks, I think,
Hmm.
I think private joke for priests. Everyone knows that that priest who works for the bishop is
Hmm.
overly formal, overly
Hmm.
corporate, just perfect. You better have it by the end of the day.
Right.
And here we
Right.
end Wolf's story all together
Mm,
here. We end
hmm.
Wolf's story here. It's a loose end. We said if we
Yeah.
ever make a sequel, it's going to star Wolf. If we ever make a sequel, if the
Right.
audience demands it, it stars Wolf sitting in
Yeah.
Screwtape's chair. Not
Hmm.
so subtle, not so
Hmm.
subtle communication
Yeah.
to the audience
Yeah.
about the road Michael James
Yeah.
is on. Little Godfather 2ish
I
in the
was going to ask
chair.
you about that. With you wearing the rosary in that picture, does that signify
Very
anything,
good.
or is that?
Excellent. Excellent. You know what
Yeah.
I wanted to point out here is, there's an idea in, I think maybe Protestant circles more than Catholic, or maybe
Yeah.
that's not fair to say, is
Uh,
that somehow that the churches and religious articles, demons somehow have to stand outside and you're just completely protected,
oh,
um,
sure.
because
Yeah.
there's a rosary in your pocket. You don't
Yeah. The
experience
vampire and
spiritual
the cross,
warfare.
all that stuff. Yeah. 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 Okay.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
vampire and the cross. And you
Yeah.
see, as Screwtape's talking, there's a blessed Mary, there's
Hmm.
all kinds of religious imagery. And he says, I don't care about the church. Go ahead, go to church.
Yeah.
And how that's not stopping the battles that Christ allows us to have.
Mm.
Rosary beads and
Hmm.
all of the trappings
Trinkets.
of
Yeah. That's
all of
right.
the well, we don't want to respect the sacramentals,
Hmm.
Charles, but and they have power in them. Religiosity
Uh,
does not stop demonic attacks. It does not stop evil action. Right? Just
mm,
because you say the rosary every day doesn't mean you're not in
that's
danger
right.
of going to hell.
Right.
So the rosary beads were on purpose, and they were on
Mm.
purpose, and also
Good. Okay.
commentary of beware religious podcasters. Don't
Obviously, I think that's
trust
the story we're
every.
telling throughout the. That's the theme.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is episode 4 right here. Now you see Michael James is really unwinding. We're shooting things differently. If anyone's interested in the production
Mm,
value, it starts off
mm,
more realistic. That there's someone there. There's 3 shots. Wolf's in the
mm,
room. There's
mhm,
cutaways. There's a lot of stuff going on here.
mm,
We have these cold shots back and forth. It's becoming more and more clear that is this
mhm,
all in Michael James's head? Is he talking to
mm,
himself? Is he
mhm,
talking to an empty chair? Is he
mm.
unraveling? Is he mentally ill? Is he becoming mentally ill because he sees demons, or is he imagining demons because he's mentally ill? And it's beginning to all kind of come apart here in the
Yeah.
4th episode.
What do you think? Are you? Did
Well,
we
well, it's
decide? I
really,
don't think we
it's
did.
really, it's really up to the audience to decide
Mm,
whether or not, you know, there's definitely a demonic presence here, of course, but
mhm,
does Wolf see it? I think that's the question. Does Wolf see it, or is
mm,
Wolf a fragile person pushed around who's playing along with it and just kind of feels the presence? Does Wolf actually see Screwtape? That's the big question here. I'm not quite sure.
yeah. Or does Wolf
Um,
just need the job?
Now, I
Who
want to tell
knows?
you
Right.
about this. Shooting this, we shot the fourth. We shot the last part first. That final Michael James and Screwtape
Hmm.
one-on-one thing,
Right.
and that really it just happened really well. And I don't even know how it happened. It just
Yeah.
happened, and that impacted how we did this. Even this music, don't think I would have made a lot of these decisions in the editing room if I wasn't so confident in this final scene. Because it could have got hokey, it could have got corny, but it was so appropriate to tell the audience we're getting ready for the final scene, the final
Yeah.
standoff. Because the final standoff was so strong and we were confident in it, we were able to really kind of do all this stuff to lead up to it. This sort of even
Mhm.
action music. Remember, everything was shot in the nighttime. the first 3 episodes. Only here do
Mhm.
we see the daylight. We
Mhm.
only see the daylight in episode 4. So it
Mhm.
has a completely different feel to it, this episode 4. It's completely different from the other 3.
Mhm.
I think it's bold.
Yeah.
And this is Father Kevin's final dramatic
Mhm.
scene in the sunset.
Mhm. Mhm.
What do you have to say about this, Father Kevin? I mean, not Father Kevin, Charles. What do you have to say about this?
You know, I it was the golden hour, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
was exciting, and yeah, that part right there. I even struggled, reading it, thinking like, well, why would he say that? I thought this was a moment of him, uh, yeah, being hard and being, convicted, um, and then he just hangs up on
Hanging up on that girl, that might seem harsh to some,
her.
but it's at a point where there's nothing more that can be said. It's just going to
Yeah,
go down a path. She's just going to manipulate him to
yeah,
doing something he doesn't want to do. Now, here's
yeah.
very different. This is the most unique part of the whole movie. It's moved
Mm,
fast, 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 fast. Now it's so slow. And that's what a spiritual battle looks like. The
mhm.
music doesn't come in. It's you're going to trouble through it. It's going to be lonely. He goes back to the lonely room. He goes back to the
Yeah,
lonely room to suffer for his people.
all by
That's
himself.
what a
Yeah.
victory looks like. The music doesn't come in. There's not high fives. That's what happens. So this
Mhm.
is so important that Father Kevin begins like a good priest and a better priest to
Mhm.
pray for
Mhm.
Michael James. What's going on here?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's the big entity in this relationship between um, Kevin McCory and
Mhm.
Michael James, that he
Mhm.
begins to pray, and that's how Michael James survives this encounter, is
Yeah.
because of Father Kevin's prayers. That's how he
Well,
survives. He shouldn't be talking to him. He's
yeah,
how many times did you tell Michael James not to talk to Screwtape? He's
yeah.
still talking to him. You know.
But I think also, Father Kevin, tie back into all the things that we've been talking about, puts himself aside for a second
Yeah,
and focuses on something
his
else,
people,
someone
on
else,
his
his
people.
people.
What
Right.
he's like a priest should, like a priest
Right.
should.
Right.
So this was very interesting. So this came out great. Now I don't say that
Mhm.
egotistically because I didn't expect it even to come out great. When I was young,
Mm.
I was talking this with Charles. When we were young, we were method actors. We would get emotional. We would do all these dramatic. This I just did it. Just hurry up and do. I got so many. I got so much stuff to
Right.
do. So many shots to take. I just
Right.
had so many lights to set up. This was
Right.
way practically bit off more than I could chew. I
Yeah.
just did it and I just did it and didn't even feel like it was good
Yeah.
at all. But when I got to the editing room, I was like, holy crap, what is this?
Hmm. Yeah.
Why am I getting emotional watching myself? Why do I
Right.
even feel emotional? It's
Hmm.
this, this demonic experience that we all
Mm.
experience. There it
Yeah.
is. There it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. You don't have
so,
to attach meaning to, again, because we have this great work of the English literature
yeah,
with us, carrying us through this. So there's not a lot we need to add, even with emotions and all the rest of that, because again, we're older and we
yeah.
internalized a lot of
Hmm.
uh, this pain and this longing and
Interesting.
regret.
Yeah.
But also knowing that you still got to put one foot in front of the other. You still got to go to work. You
That
still got to
sign,
pay the bills. Yeah.
to jump in with that line, it was a son. That was very interesting. I don't know
Mm.
why that line resonated with both of us when we wrote it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like not knowing it was a son, it wasn't just this baby
Hmm.
to just come to more grips that it's a person that deserves to be
Mm.
mournful. It's a
Hmm.
person that's in heaven and
Hmm.
just becomes more real to him.
Right.
And the
Right.
pain in his voice as he says it was a
Hmm.
boy.
Hmm.
It's a very strong moment, I think.
Hmm. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love how Screwtape mocks him with the God. I mean, Screwtape
Hmm.
just is amazing. Just how
Hmm.
he mocks this performance, just
Hmm.
doing the God, mocking him,
Hmm.
saying, "I know
Yeah.
who you really are." Time does not erase blood. Can we talk about that
Uh,
line, Charles?
sure. Lay it on.
That's a great line, and that's what it. And he's right. Screwtape is right
Hmm.
about this. He cannot redeem himself. He cannot
Hmm.
undo the blood that was spilled. Only the
Hmm.
blood of Jesus. And he
Hmm.
knows it. He knows
Hmm.
it. And a
Hmm.
part of him wants to choose hell and says he doesn't deserve to be forgiven because he doesn't. Michael
Hmm.
James can't save himself, and he
That's
has
right.
not embraced the divine mercy of Jesus Christ. And he's
Hmm.
completely a victim of Screwtape, and he's only out of here by the skin of his teeth, thanks to Father Kevin, because he didn't go off with the girl. Thank you very much, Charles.
Yeah, yeah, and to Mike's credit, he continued to reach out
Yeah,
when he and
continue
he
to desperately
continued.
call
Yeah, and he kept faith
the
despite.
sunset there.
Yeah,
That
it's really
sunset with
interesting.
the empty chair. I didn't know how that was going to work out, but that sunset
Mm,
into the empty chair, because we've been in the pit for so long, and then to
hmm
see the sunlight pour in, it's a
hmm
powerful moment there.
Yeah, here's
And
your guerrilla footage of the church. This
yeah,
is
guerrilla footage of the
yeah, yeah,
church. It's not
yeah.
the best quality, but
Oh, I love it.
and
Yeah.
when I first I said, "Does this whole thing got to be cut?"
hmm
The footage is just not good. But this, I think, this with the sunlight coming in, this is the first time
mm
again there's sunlight on us both. This is a
hmm
good scene,
Yeah.
and because this scene was so good, all this guerrilla
hmm
footage we could keep, and
No,
it's just
I
an
think it
important
looks
part of
great.
the story. It's an important part
Yeah,
of the story.
yeah. I
Again,
knew the background. That's all. I think it looks great.
yeah,
Yeah.
we are telling the people again that this baby
hmm
is alive in heaven.
hmm
It's an
hmm
immortal soul, and
mm
he has this feeling that this baby's is grown up, is in heaven praying for him. It's not in hell. That was a lie from Screwtape, as
Yeah.
Michael James yelled at him, liar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just to see that, it's that wasn't the end of his
Right.
story, and to
Right.
have that visual of that 25-year-old construction worker,
Uh-huh.
really, it's an important visual to kind of hit the story,
Yeah.
even though it would have been stronger
Yeah.
with a stronger
Yeah.
production value.
Well, I the idea that the devil's a liar, and I know that's in the tag, but you know, I hope the audience is uh, sometimes confused by what the devil's saying because
Yeah,
you can't trust what
yeah,
Screwtape is saying at all.
absolutely, at all,
It's
right.
yeah,
It's not going to
it's
line up, and this is what I love about Gabriel Morth. You read Gabriel Morth too as a young
mhm,
man, and
yeah,
it's
mhm,
kind of weird, two not very religious people reading Gabriel Morth in their
yeah,
20s.
right,
Um, but what made him so convincing was,
hmm
when you read his books, it doesn't line up nicely at all. He's like, I don't know, because I don't know.
yeah,
All kinds of crazy stuff happens. I
right,
can't
right,
describe this in a little
yeah,
category. And that's why
yeah,
I think a lot of these YouTube priests and
mm,
exorcists,
hmm
with telling people all these cute little stories about demons
yeah,
and everything lines up nicely. It's garbage.
right,
It's
yeah,
garbage. If you read a Morth, you come away with that like, holy moly,
yeah,
we don't understand the complexity and the sophistication of this demonic world. We don't
and I
understand it at all. You can't put it
and
in a human to
that part,
understand box.
yeah, and I think that always, especially as a younger man, with wanting an answer, just wanting somebody to tell me tell me how it is, tell me the
Mhm.
truth, tell me exactly
Yeah,
what to do, and always looking for the holes in the arguments, or
right.
always looking for
Yeah,
the reason to say no to God, the reason to elevate myself above it. As it's it's so refreshing to
mhm,
come across something like a C.S. Lewis that not only challenges a lot of those ideas, but also
mhm,
reminds you you're not having a lot of original thoughts here, my friend. Like
mhm.
these are questions that people have been wrestling with since the dawn of time,
Right.
and only in that surrender do you get any kind of peace. Only
Absolutely.
in that giving of yourself do you get any kind of solace in knowing that tomorrow will be a brighter day, all the rest of that kind of stuff. And even, it could still rain tomorrow, and it
Mhm,
probably will. So,
mhm.
yeah, I think this was great. I had a lot of fun
And
doing
it's
this.
good to mention
Yeah.
that Father Nuzzi is an exorcist, who is a friend of mine, is
hmm
a exorcist who I work with.
hmm
Um, and he worked for Gabriel Morth. So
hmm
just listening, I know you listen to a lot of Father Nuzzi too, Charles.
Sure.
So just listening to his theology is going to give
hmm
you the good Gabriel Morth theology. It's going to give you a lot of the C.S. Lewis theology, and
hmm
just learning so much
Yeah.
from Iannuzzi, it's
hmm
really impacted the kind of film we could make here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
And
it's
speak to that. Go ahead.
not just all those influences, everything coming together to make this one piece in one part of time, and
Yeah.
we could come back in a year and want to change things or have different ideas. But again, that's why we did it, for the sake of itself.
A lot of odd things. So many things
Mhm,
came together. Like even
mhm,
that last scene, I mean,
mhm.
so many things came together that were
Yeah,
unexpected. The story
yeah,
took other forms and everything
hmm
just kind of came right.
yeah.
It's pretty
I'm in
amazing.
another part
So
of the country. We still made it
absolutely,
work.
absolutely.
Yeah,
That's why there's so much stuff on the phone that had to be
right,
done.
right,
Two people
exactly.
from different parts of the country.
Yeah,
Haven't made a
just
film
talking
in
on the phone.
25 years.
Yeah,
And we're able to, as Kevin McCory said, the real Kevin McCory, to just raw
yeah.
storytell, and it was a story worth telling.
Yes, it was.
Finally,
Amen.
finally, at this age, we had a
Hmm.
story worth
Right,
telling.
right. So
Interestingly
watch
enough,
it. Would you people watch it,
yeah,
please? Good Lord.
crazy enough. So here we are, as we're recording this. This is going to air in a few weeks, but as we record it,
Hmm.
episode 2 is about to drop tomorrow night. But
Hmm.
episode 1 was a complete and utter flop. It was very interesting. It was a complete flop. And usually in this YouTube, I've been doing it, religious YouTube for a while. The first day is
Hmm.
the best, then it slows down. But our
Hmm.
first day was horrible. Then it
Hmm.
began to pick up, and now it's doing pretty well. Now it's
All right.
doing pretty well. I never, the flop never bothered me because I knew this is a good production and it's
Hmm.
going to be word of mouth. It's going to take time, but people
Hmm.
come to good products, and these hooks are going to get people in. And all of a sudden, I've never seen a video behave like this, just
Good.
utterly flop and then pick up and pick up. It's very interesting. But
Good.
I think regardless of what happens, we're going to have um, a little audience that appreciates it. I
I
can
hope
see it
so.
already with the comments and the feedback.
Good.
And Father Iannuzzi likes it. Father Iannuzzi
That's
likes it.
all we could ask for. Father Joe giving the thumbs up
Yeah,
is best case scenario.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. He didn't,
Hmm.
he plugged it in his recent um, presentation that he made. He didn't have to do that. Sometimes I like to keep my stuff separate
Sure.
from Father Joe, because if people don't like me, I want them to still like Father Joe. I want them
Who?
to like the divine
Who
will.
doesn't like you?
Oh, you should see
Unbelievable.
these emails.
Ah,
Something about the cut of my
terrible.
jib. These
Uh,
people just don't like me. They just, I
well,
don't
they're
know.
wrong,
I
is what it is.
guarantee you there's going to be comments on this video that says, "Why don't you let Charles talk? You talk so much. Why don't you stop?" I got to cut
That might
the.
be from me. That might be my comment
No,
in there.
I mean, sometimes I got to cut, off because I wanted to look at the video and stuff Anyway, God
Ah.
Almighty. But anyway, so yeah, but he went out of his way to say,
Mhm.
I like it, I promote it, and to let people know that this is a good product. And C.S. Lewis is a
Yeah.
great theologian, and
Yeah.
he's not in style anymore. He's not in style anymore, and it's a shame.
Well, yeah. Yeah. But hopefully, my son uh, is going to college in August. And one of the things I gave him as, he's preparing and getting his stuff ready and getting ready to move was that book, The Screwtape Letters, because I read it at about his age. And,
Hmm.
I hope he reads it, but
Yeah,
I think it's, written in 1941. It's still, or maybe 1940, I forget.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it still speaks to him, and I'm sure, because if it spoke to a kid in 2004, it'll speak to a kid in 2025. So
Yeah, we think that
yeah.
it's very good for religious people and
Hmm.
non-practicing
Hmm.
Christians alike.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, it hits a note. It
Yeah.
hits a note. It's hard hitting. It's intense. It's a
Yes.
very intense. It's very intense. It's very challenging. It's very discomforting. Um,
Hmm.
but I believe it's really productive for
Yeah.
people who want to grow in their
Hmm.
spiritual lives,
Hmm.
and a lot of
Yeah.
really heavy, good themes there. We didn't
Yeah.
even get into the themes about the church, the themes about family. How about the mothers, right? How many mothers are going through being disowned by their children? That's like a
Oh my
trend.
goodness. Yeah.
People,
It's tragic.
women
Yeah.
in their 70s and
Mm.
80s, these women our age are keeping their grandchildren away. I mean, it's a
Mm.
really, really big trend here with
Yeah.
families
Yeah.
falling apart, and that
Yeah.
really speaks to that. That's one of a good piece of writing that we did to speak
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. And if you want to know more, you have to watch
Oh yeah, yeah,
Interviews with the Demon. ladies and
Yes,
gentlemen.
yes, yes. Not only watch it, if you give it a thumbs up, I mean, it seems silly, give it a thumbs up, but that helps other people
Yeah,
get to the video. Sharing
yeah,
it with your friends gets to. If you have any
hmm
questions about the production or what
hmm
we did or why we did it, you can put it in the comments.
yep,
Charles and I will be happy to answer all of your questions. We want to
hmm
thank the audience. So if you're watching this, you watched the whole thing and you liked it, and we appreciate you supporting us. Sometimes God tells you like things that you would never think of. And then you say, okay, I gave it a shot and look at
hmm
all these good things that happen. That's been the story of my life. When I trust God to do something that
hmm
seems a little bit weird, a lot of good things happen. I really think this is a similar situation. Charles, his phone probably went dead. Anyway, that's a good way to end it anyway. I talk to him every day. Don't worry about him. But any of your questions, comments, we appreciate them all. God bless you all. Um, and I'll end with the Saint Michael prayer. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. By thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who roam through the world, seeking the ruins of souls. Amen. Fiat.